Broads Media.
All right, everybody, welcome on into Sports Talk with Broads. I won't lie, I'm hurt. I'm crushed. That was not what I expected on the night where Joel Embiid wins MVP. He's crying with his son in his arms. He has such a huge smile on his face when having the trophy in his hands. The place was on fire. I thought that would build into some sort of momentum. And then as soon as the game started, here's Boston making a ton of shots. Now, the Sixers, to their credit, early on I'm speaking, did crawl back. And at some point I thought had a shot until James Harden sucked the life out of the entire building. He couldn't buy a damn shot, and he's the number one reason why you fell in Game 3. Now, I do want to note that I am not ruling them out. I'm not saying it's over. I am not giving up. I projected 2-2 heading back to Boston. So there's still a path for that to be real. You go down 3-1 going back to Boston, then it's a whole nother conversation. Think about how they actually made it a possible chance. 6-point game, 4-point game. They had no business. Imagine if James Harden had a D- game instead of an F- game. You could have pulled that out of your ass. Never thought there'd be a day where I was begging for a D- game because he was that pathetic. Buddy was that pathetic. I don't care what the final box score says. My box score says he made one shot all game. There's a ton of stats that will tell you that this was going to be the case, considering at his age, with not having a lot of time off in between games, this is what you get. You had no chance when you got James Ben Simmons Harden. And I'm not even pretending like it sort of looked like Ben Simmons. No, it actually did. When he was going to the rack, he had no idea what he wanted to do with the basketball. He lacked confidence. Not lacking confidence shooting because, he'll be willing. He'd shoot it if he wanted to. He actually killed what I thought was one of their final last attempts of actually stealing this thing because he wants to take a three that, that's right, didn't go in. Because in my box score, none of them went in except for one. Maxie was awful too. I don't want to go without saying credit to Boston's defense. There's a correlation with why we were worried about Tyrese Maxey in this matchup and why this matchup gives him so many problems. They do have length. They do make it difficult for you. And when it's Joel Embiid versus Boston, you're playing 1 versus 5 essentially. That's unfair to DeAnthony Melton because I thought DeAnthony Melton played with his heart. And PJ Tucker did hit a couple of threes. But from a more broad sense, it was Joel Embiid versus the world. So when they throw 3 guys in his direction, well, okay. What do you guys want to rely on tonight? Because James isn't there, so, that's right. The best time our offense looked outside of a Joel Embiid possession was George Niang driving to the basket. Do you want to know how many games you are going to win when that's what looks best outside of Joel Embiid? 0. I don't even think you beat the process Sixers with that. Oh, man, what a mess. The loose balls go to who? Oh, that's right, the Boston Celtics again. Oh, here's an offensive rebound. Here's Al Horford. Man, that fucking three pissed me off. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I was pissed when Al Horford hit that three. Pissed! And I'm pissed even thinking about it now. Because I can't stand looking at that fool. He is such a fraud. But of course, he hits one of the biggest shots of the game. This isn't on Doc Rivers. I'm sure there's some thinking, bro, you were talking all that smack about coaching. I thought the way Joe Mazzulla handled Joel Embiid today was good. It was good. I thought they had a good game plan against Joel Embiid. So credit to Joe Mazzulla. But what really happened here was one of your best players couldn't do anything and then froze mid-game. Forgot how to play mid-game. You were never going to win this series with that being the case. For years and years and years now, you get carried by how far your superstar talent can carry you. I can already hear the response. James Harden's not a superstar, bros. Well, he did score 45 points and win you game one. It's in there. He's not as consistent as he once was. That's why Steph Curry deserves a ton of credit, because at his age, taking 1 billion jump shots a season, you would think at some point, here's Father Time knocking on the door saying, I'm coming to get you. I don't know how his body isn't shot yet. When I'm watching jump shots from James Harden hit the front rim, clearly nothing left in there. If he doesn't get a couple days in between games. That's why you lost, though. It's not Doc's fault. You can't do anything with this. You can't make shots for Maxie, make shots for Tobias, who wasn't as involved. But I also thought because Scott Foster and the referees absolutely sucked. They were so bad. So bad. They ruined the entire rhythm to start the game. But I thought the Tobias Harris foul factor, when they go for a lob, the pass is going 8 feet out of bounds. It's 7 feet over the heads of everybody, too. But then they call Tobias Harris for a foul. What a disgrace, Scott Foster and that pathetic crew. I thought that also got him out of whack. I would love more mental toughness to grind through it and all, but that wasn't the case for Tobias Harris today. Wasn't as active. You're basically playing for your life on Sunday afternoon. They got to figure out answers with this offense. There was always going to be problems with your perimeter defense. Joel's presence helps. You saw a few times that the Celtics decided to peel out because Joel Embiid was hovering the paint. So they elected to kick it around the perimeter a bit more and dribble through the paint to get to the other side of the court. But that only takes you so far with Tyrese Maxey on the defensive end. You got to pray the DeAnthony Melton factor can cause some more irritation, because I do think he has the ability to be a pest. McDaniels was better in this one, but you don't really need to look at the other guys when James Harden was crap. It doesn't matter what Jalen McDaniels, George Niang, and some of the bench players do, what Paul Reed does, when the guy that's supposed to set everybody up and also score points falls asleep. And I like James Harden, and I had faith in him before today. I'm scared because the history speaks for itself, not the whole he sucks in the playoffs thing, because I don't think he gets the respect that he deserves for some of the playoff runs that he went on in his career. There's something to be said, though, about the now, and the now screams, if he's not rested, well rested, it's a collapse. So prior to tonight, I was willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that the energy in the building would cause life. that they could really go on a nice start, and the Celtics would have to weather the storm. Instead, it was the complete opposite. The barrage came from Boston. Joe Mazzulla wanted them to take a bunch of more threes after game one. Well, they're not afraid to let it fire. Some of the possessions, I thought, man, they could have got it to. And I know it's 2023, and you'll be willing to live with a wide open three over an easy layup. But I was, even in today's era, with the standards being the standards. They really went for it. And it paid off for them the last two games. Their defensive intensity is more than the Sixers. The loose ball effort, there were guys diving on the ground. But it was more about timely offensive rebounds for Boston. Timely possession staying alive and staying in favor. Well, was it the Tobias foul that they called a jump ball? That was awful. I'm trying to remember. There were so many. Marcus Smart with the most obvious blocking call ever that gets called an offensive foul. He was moving his feet so insanely to his right while not locking down his position on defense. Here's the horrendous ref. The refs weren't why they lost. You lost because of James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. I don't know if you have heard me yet, but that's why you lost the game. You lost because of James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. You lost because your players didn't even show up. Two very important starters. I felt bad for Joel Embiid because Boston could smell it and then decided to make it even that much harder for the big fella. It's easy to get up into his grill. It's easy when he gets the ball with his back to the basket to throw a second guy underneath and try and snag a steal when he had the ball, I'm saying, on the backside and poke it from behind. Jason Tatum steals it easily. Because who are you afraid of? Okay, maybe P.J. Tucker hit a couple threes, but if you're on that Celtics bench, you'll ask him to do it again. Prove it more. You haven't done it enough for me to actually be convinced. Do it again, then fine. Tyrese, okay. You want to take some shots? We'll dare you to. And he took some of those. And I'm sure Boston is smiling happily. Not scared. There's only one player to be feared of at this moment, and that's Joel. Until somebody does something significant and stronger and can put it together for a whole quarter or for a whole half, you're toast. The question becomes, can they get the response? I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying it's all over. That's not my DNA. And it's not just blind faith. I was aware of the matchup problems. What we're seeing the last two games is exactly that. There's reasons why when you broke this down strategically with your X's and your O's, Boston would come out on top, and did, for a lot of different reasons. But there's also something in the Sixers. If they play to their capability, I'm looking at you, James Harden. I don't know if I said that yet today. I just want to make sure I'm clear. And I hate to do it to him. But I'm just being objective on what we all saw. Yo, James, dig deeper. Find a way. Okay, so you're at your back end of your career. You're a phenomenal passer, one of the best ever. That is the truth. I'm not just saying that. If your shot's not falling, find a different way to contribute. Because that's how this game goes. Al Horford the other day didn't do extremely well. Well, he made up for it in game 3, did he not? I didn't hate every shot he took. I know you could hear the crowd at some point having frustration and kind of mumbling, and there was that tone and that negative feeling throughout the crowd. Part of me thought, well, I mean, to be fair, a player with his type of skill level, the only way to get out of the funk is to shoot through the funk. And I believed that to a level. So I wasn't aggravated with every single shot. I got mad when they weren't falling. But I'm okay with someone who has the ability to score at a high clip on shooting through stuff like this. With that said, though, you got to find a balance. And maybe you progressing through the offense a different way or rolling through the offense differently if you know your shot isn't smooth. You get a couple dimes. You make some good passes. You come around screens, make a good read, find the open player, and then a few assists like that spark your offense bleeds into your scoring. And then a different part of your game unlocks because of the feel-good process. Instead, it was one of the ugliest things I've ever seen. You put his last two nights together, oh man. You were never going to win with this, playing this way. But going back to my point of, the blind optimism, the Sixers are good. It would be harder against Boston than anybody else in the Eastern Conference. And I'm being real here. You have such a good shot against every single team in the East, the hardest being the team you're matched up with in the second round. And oh, by the way, you haven't been able to get out of the second round in a long time. I'm not making an excuse. I'm just putting it in perspective on how good the Sixers are. The Sixers can beat all the teams in the West, in my opinion. Would have a dogfight with Milwaukee. And in my eyes, still a chance to have a dogfight with Boston. You just needed to answer the hardest question on the test early in the test. Instead of it being on page 5, question number 50, it's question number 6. And you can't skip ahead. So you can't get stumped for too long or you're screwed. That's basically what we're witnessing now. I just didn't expect to be here today. I'm not going to lie. I had a feeling from the sports gods about the shorthanded win in Game 1. I thought in Game 2, the Celtics had the advantage because home teams tie it up a lot of times. Everything surrounding the ceremony, MVP, Embiid reflecting on how he got here, because you're a human, and I'm sure it's very easy to think about your path. Playing basketball at 15, 16 years old, now winning one of the most appreciated regular season awards there is in the NBA. Going through some hard times with his family, having a kid. There's an inspiration involved. And I'm not knocking Joel. He was there. I mean, when no one else is, what are you going to, demand the guy to do? There's only so much. He wasn't nowhere near a concern. And I'm sure you guys aren't stunned, but I started to receive all sorts of Twitter messages about it being time to think about trading him because there's a ceiling on this team. Let me answer that for you right now. Fuck no. He might ask for a trade at some point because he's annoyed with losing. And superstars want to team up. I wouldn't be surprised, and Ty has been saying this for a while now, if Miami and Jimmy Butler, ring, 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 yo, you know how close they are, how they're boys. Jimmy goes, yo, Joel, I got a ton of coffee down here. I'll give you it for free. I won't sell it. If you remember at the bubble, he was selling his own special coffee to people during the COVID year. It's like, yo, Joel, I got coffee for you and Arthur and your fiance, your girl. That may happen. But I'm keeping Joel Embiid until Joel Embiid has that conversation with Joshua Harris and Daryl Morey. Until then, you go to war with this town. Another part of this, and we'll start getting the phone calls here. Guys haven't produced. What Daryl Morey put together, I can't knock it. At some point, instead of pointing the finger at everybody else, because that's also out there. Daryl Morey sucked at his job. Well, not really. I don't think so. Getting James Harden for Ben Simmons, not to relive the history here, but that trade is still masterful. Sucking in the postseason and where Ben Simmons is are two different planets still. Both are horrendous in their own degree, but Daryl Morey putting this roster together, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was saying about where they line up with the NBA and then where they line up with Boston. Out of all the teams, I think there's one that scared me to this level, legitimately. You're facing that team early. That means the roster can win against every other team except for one. If your general manager or president of basketball operations is doing that, I'm not screaming at him. I'll just look more at the players and say, while I do know where the other team stands in comparison to you, there's different ways to go about how you lose. The Toronto Maple Leafs, if you look at the way they lost last year in the first round, you can't be upset if you're a Toronto fan, even though it's been one of the most painful stretches in your life. They eventually got out of the first round this year for the first time since, I believe, 2004. But with the way they lost they went to war and gave you a fucking awesome series and just lost in heartbreak, but had nothing really to do with the players and the way they left it out there on the floor. That's not really the vibe I'm getting out of this team. They're not maximizing everything on their roster by their individual play and then falling short because both teams play at their respected elites, but the other team's elite is just a tad more. Does that make sense? Let's say the Sixers play at a 10, the Celtics play at a 10, and then you really kind of give them a golf clap, the Celtics that is, for going like, all right, both teams did everything they had. And you know the team with a bit of an advantage, a little bit of an edge, won. But if you give me a 6 and not your 10, and Boston plays a part of that, but it's not the whole thing. Their defense, their length, Jason Brown. If they combined as one player, that would be scary. Jaylen Brown and Tatum. Tatum's corner shot was gross. Jaylen Brown this series, I think he's been so good. So good. At times, I think he shows flashes where I believe he could be better than Tatum, believe it or not. I said that on the air this week, too, and people made fun of me. There's flashes where Jaylen Brown, I wonder what would be if he was on his own team. But anyway. The only thing that matters is, one, this headset is not staying on my head because I don't think I have it properly lined up with where it needs to, so I've just fixed it for the 8th time. And 2, if I even said number 1, I forget because I don't know what life is at the moment. I don't know. I'm heartbroken. Anyway, not giving up, though. Just in a lot of pain because I didn't anticipate it looking this way. Phones. We'll do phones. Let's do it.
Yeah, Broads, thanks for the vine. What a disgrace. 76ers. Terrible performance, but mainly by that phony imposter of James Harden. That could not have been the real James Harden out there. He must have been abducted somehow by aliens, and they put an imposter out there. Reminded me of a Sparto movie in the 90s with Dan Aykroyd and Daniel Stern called Celtic Pride, where they kidnapped the main star. Celtic fans must have kidnapped the main star, the real James Harden. They put that imposter out there who couldn't take a shot and played scared afraid to make the shot passing off. Come on, Harden. What was that? That was terrible.
I don't know what to say. It was terrible. It was one of the worst playoff performances I've seen. And I watched Ben Simmons. I'm putting it on that level. There were spurts where it actually looked exactly like Ben. And I didn't think he was that mentally weak for his body to shut down like that. His mind, really, his mind. He's one of the smartest basketball players. One of the things Jaylen Brown said after game one was looking at the way they defended Philadelphia and pretty much publicly called out Joe Mazzulla, claiming that he did not do a good enough job with putting them in positions to succeed. Saying James Harden has been in this league for a long period of time, and he's seen basically every coverage. There needs to be something different for us to cause him more trouble. And since those remarks, he's been a forgettable player. Not forgettable because there's a lot of pressure on him by all of us, but, you forget he's out there because he's non-existent, except for bricks flying across the room, flying across the court. I thought Al Horford was terrible in game two. I had fun laughing at that. I think what ended up happening, too, was it took so much out of James Harden to score those 45 that he's got nothing left in the tank. It actually destroyed him. Is that unfair? An older player getting cooked for having to do so much in an effort? So, Tobias Harris that game played 42 minutes, was it? He played 42 minutes in the 119-115 win in game one. Harden played almost 40 and took 30 shots, 14 three-pointers. He probably had a bunch of ice bags on his legs for the entire night when he returned home. And has been limping ever since. Have you ever seen those videos on TikTok where someone pretends to be an athlete and it says the way soccer players walk through the hallways in high school, the way football players walk through high school, the way basketball players walk through high school, and it's that prototypical cocky limp, but it also is a sign of fatigue with slides on, like that basic standard look of someone who just went through a crazy workout or a tough practice from the coach after running suicides, and they walk into class with the bag over their shoulder, holding their shoes with their slides on. That's what I think James Harden looked like as he was walking through the hallways of his house. Getting water in the fridge, gets his purifier out, lets the dog out. After that 45-pointer. Had to have been.
I'm not even mad. I'm disappointed. I mean, the same thing every year. Boston's offense flows way better than ours. Not as much ISO. They pass the ball. They move the ball. They hit their open shots. And they rebound. Like, can we grab a rebound? It's incredible every single time we play them. Marcus Smart, Al Horford, every rebound either goes right to them or we're just not getting them. James Harden, your time as a Sixer's coming to an end, and I'm so glad it is. Tyrese Maxey, if we have to ship you out to get a better player, we are, because you ain't built for the playoffs, buddy. You're too erratic sometimes. You're taking dumb layups. I want to just give a thank you to Joel Embiid.
I'm going to stop you there. I disagree with the Maxie thing. Maxie was awful. Maxie's 22 years old. You know what Tyrese Maxey looks like? A 22-year-old in the playoffs with a team knowing that they can make his life hell. It looks like a player that still has to go through these type of experiences to eventually get somewhere. Joel Embiid had to learn how to produce in the postseason when it's springtime. He's almost 30 now. That takes a while. You have to go through this to become what you want to become. Joel Embiid is how old? I think he's 29. 29 years old. March 16th, 1994. Which it's crazy to think that Embiid is, well, he's 2 years older than me. I'm 27. I'll be 28 in 18 days or so. But to see 1994 on there, knowing I was born in 95, kind of freaks me out because Embiid is a monster and I love him to death. I don't want to say something as crazy as Tyrese Maxey, we got to get this guy out of here and get better town. No, Tyrese Maxey is a project. He's got a fantastic ceiling, but this type of pain and struggle for him is normal. I'm not happy right now because you're in must-win mode, but that shouldn't make me have a knee-jerk reaction on someone who I think, when we watch him play over the next 4, 5, 6 years, we'll see growth. Bulking up, getting in the weight room. He gets pushed around right now. He's also playing against guys that are bigger and stronger. What if Maxey fills out more? Do you want to go look at the now and the then pictures of Joel Embiid and how much he bulked up? So for Maxey's frame, he needs to add. But until you see what you're missing, you don't know how much you need that drive. That's how you get that motivation, because you see what you're missing, and then you apply it in the offseason. I know James has sucked the last 2 days, but I value his strengths while being disappointed in the moment. I'm crushed in the moment. I don't know what the answer is, but him and Joel's two-man game, if James Harden could make his shots, make the shots, man. Make the shots. Oh, man. I just think what could be. Damn.
3-on-5 is what we're playing. You do complain about Ben Simmons, and while he was a garbage basketball player, because of Maxey's inability with longer defenders and Harden's just awful shooting, you're playing 3-on-5 instead of 4-on-5.
Well, I don't care how you view it. It doesn't matter what it is. You're getting beat badly. It shouldn't have even been as close as it was during a stretch in the fourth quarter. I couldn't believe it. Didn't it feel you were down 40? You were down 6. You're down 4. What? Should be 12, 14, 16, if not 40. Speaking of 40s, if I'm Grant Williams, I'm going to chug a 40 tonight. Because those teeth, whew, my man actually sat on the bench as if nothing was wrong with his face, after Embiid's feet smashed it into the court. That was awful. Awful. Anyway, too much of the Ben Simmons name was said. I'm not even making sentences work anymore. But there was too much Ben Simmons in this show today. I thought we were done with that. I thought it was all over. Instead, one of the best point guards and passers in league history put on a Sixers jersey, and then in the playoffs in a big spot, looks just like Ben Simmons. Why can't we get away from it? I don't know. Sunday afternoon. Season's basically on the line. What's going to happen? It's a great question, Broach. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's why they pay me the big bucks here at Broach Media. And by they, I mean YouTube. Myself, I pay myself through YouTube. All right, I'm done. I'm shutting up. Talk to you later.